1618, Europe stands on the cusp of the most destructive war in its history. A 30-year-long cataclysm that will engulf the continent. Rape, slaughter, and rumors of cannibalism will haunt the land. War, starvation, and plague will decimate whole populations. Men, women, children, soldiers, and civilians, no one will be spared in a conflict that still casts a long shadow across European history to the modern day. 100 years after the Protestant Reformation split Christianity into rival camps, Europe is bitterly divided. Many northern rulers have embraced the Protestant teachings inspired by Martin Luther. In the south, most remain solidly Catholic and loyal to the Pope in Rome. Suspicion, unrest, and sectarian violence spread like a virus. In England and Scotland, Protestant King James fears a Catholic resurgence. In France, Catholic authorities are nervous about Protestant subversion. The Protestant Dutch fight desperately for independence from Catholic Spain, a brutal conflict already in its 5th decade. But the divisions run deepest in the Holy Roman Empire. This is not a unified realm but a patchwork of kingdoms, principalities, and duchies, many of which will one day form the modern state of Germany. Voltaire later quipped it was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. Instead, each mini-state has its own government, but all are overseen by the Holy Roman Emperor. The Emperor is a figurehead elected by 7 powerful princes and archbishops. For centuries the role has been filled a member of the Habsburg dynasty, Europe's dominant ruler of vast lands that include Spain and its overseas colonies. The emperors are staunch Catholics, but their Holy Roman Empire is as religiously split as the rest of the continent. Since a treaty of 1555, religious peace has held together under the principle of quis regio, ius religio, whose realm, whose religion. Meaning, all subjects must follow the faith of their ruler. But it is unworkable to impose belief from above. Lutheran and Calvinist missionaries compete for converts. Many Catholics are ready to fight to reunify Christendom under the Pope. The Holy Roman Empire is a powder keg primed to explode. The first sparks flare in Bohemia. The local nobility is religiously diverse and fiercely independent. Here, Bohemian Hussites broke with Rome a century before the Reformation. But Bohemia is under the direct rule of King Ferdinand, a Habsburg, and hardline Catholic. He cancels concessions, demolishes non-Catholic churches. These deliberate provocations anger Bohemia's nobles and reformers. In May 1618, they corner 2 of Ferdinand's ministers at Prague Castle, subject them to a summary trial, and throw them, and their secretary, from a high window. The 2 ministers, Vilém Slavata and Jaroslav Borzita, survive the fall. Catholic allies claim angels saved them, Protestant rebels say they landed in a dung heap. One thing is not in doubt, Bohemia is in open rebellion against imperial Catholic rule, the first act of violence in what will soon become the deadliest conflict Europe has ever known. Ferdinand has powerful allies, Duke Maximilian of Bavaria, leader of the empire's Catholic League, the Duke of Saxony, a Lutheran, but whose loyalty has been secured with promises of land. And the might of Habsburg Spain, Europe's greatest power, unwilling to let upheaval in Germany threaten its supply road to the Netherlands. But this imperial faction immediately faces serious threats. The Bohemian rebels besiege Vienna, while a Transylvanian force, supported by the emperor's bitterest enemy, the Ottoman Empire, invades Hungary, torching villages, seizing food, laying waste to the land. The Ottomans hold back from committing their own troops to the invasion force. It's a potent what-if moment from European history, and exactly the sort of alternate history you can explore in Europa Universalis v. Could you take advantage of the splits in Christendom to carve out a greater Ottoman Empire in Central Europe? Diplomatic as well as military means are available to you, and dynastic manipulation. In August 1619, emboldened by success on the battlefield, the Bohemians depose Ferdinand and replace him with of their own, and crown him King Frederick. But in a plot twist, the Holy Roman Emperor dies and Ferdinand is himself elected the new emperor that same month. The Bohemians' local revolt is now an act of treason against imperial authority. The tide begins to turn. Ferdinand enlists the help of Catholic Poland, which sends cavalry forces to harass the Transylvanians. They are driven back into Hungary. In November 1620, an elite Imperial and Catholic League force meets the ill-disciplined rebel army at White Mountain. Outside Prague, the fighting is brief but bloody. In just over an hour, 1,000 Protestant soldiers are slaughtered. The fledgling Bohemian independence movement appears to have been crushed. But the wider conflict is far from over. And soon the flames of religious war will spread across the continent. After his victory at White Mountain, the uncompromising Emperor Ferdinand clamps down. Rebel ringleaders are arrested and executed, severed heads are put on public display. In 1621, the emperor's avenging forces descend on the Palatinate, the homelands of Bohemia's usurper king. That same year, a truce between Spain and the Dutch expires, an open conflict reignites. It will soon blend into the wider European war between Catholics and Protestants. With Spanish help, Ferdinand's forces spend 3 years crushing all resistance, clearing the Palatinate, the Rhineland, and Westphalia. By the end of 1623, most of Western Germany is under Catholic League occupation. The mostly Protestant lords of northern Germany are alarmed by Catholic armies so close to their borders. In 1625, Christian, King of Denmark, and Duke of German Holstein, declares war on Ferdinand and marches south, a preemptive strike to secure his hold over North Germany. Catholic League forces march north to confront the Danes and their allies. They are led by 2 brilliant commanders, Johann Tserclaes, Count of Tilly in the Spanish Netherlands, and Albrecht von Wallenstein, leader of Ferdinand's imperial army in Bohemia. Wallenstein is a Bohemian Protestant, but also a notoriously ambitious mercenary commander. Both men are heroes of the victory at White Mountain. For 3 years, the Catholic forces push the Danes out of Germany, while Wallenstein occupies the Baltic coast. The Danish king has no hope of victory. In 1629, he surrenders to the Catholics. That same year, Ferdinand doubles down on Catholic supremacy by publishing the Edict of Restitution, a document that rolls back the spread of Protestantism since 1555. It is an inflammatory move, utterly unacceptable to Protestants. Even loyal Catholics are dismayed. The powerful princes who elect and support the emperor are known as the imperial electors. In 1630, they gather at Regensburg. They dismiss Wallenstein and reduce the army's size, hoping to de-escalate the conflict and contain Ferdinand's destructive instincts. But their measures go too far, leaving northern Germany virtually undefended. The timing could not be worse. A violent storm is brewing in the north, and soon it will descend to wreak a terrible destructive path through their precious empire. King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden is a militant Lutheran who fears a Habsburg presence on the Baltic Sea. He sails south to Pomerania in July, so begins one of the most dramatic military interventions in European history. He swiftly brings several North German states to his side, mostly under threat of force, and his numbers swell to almost 40,000. But one place allies with him willingly, the Protestant city of Magdeburg. The response of the Catholic and imperial forces, now all commanded by the Count of Tilly, is terrible. In May 1631, Tilly storms Magdeburg. Then, according to the city's mayor, the city was given over to murder, burning, plundering, torture, and beatings. Thousands of innocent men, women, and children were murdered and slaughtered in all sorts of merciless and wretched ways. By 10 o'clock that night, the entire city, along with its beautiful town hall and all its churches, lay in ashes. Over 20,000 are massacred, almost the entire population. The senseless slaughter is powerful propaganda for the Protestant cause. Pamphlets and illustrated letters circulate, detailing the horrors and fueling a cycle of violent reprisal. many Catholics will face a revenge called Magdeburg mercy. The unluckiest of them are forced to sample the infamous Swedentrunk, the Swedish drink. Victims have their mouths pried open and their stomachs filled with water, filth, and excrement up to the point of bursting. Sweden's intervention unleashes the kaleidoscopic horrors of the 30 Years' War. 17th-century armies sweep like locusts across Europe. Most are mercenaries, paid in the plunder they seize from conquered lands. They strip entire regions bare before they move on. Most of these armies are ordered in the Spanish system. It is based around the tercio, large square formation, usually 20 to 25 men deep, composed of pikemen and musketeers. They are supplemented by cavalry, used for scouting, harassment, or well-timed charges, and regiments of artillery. Together, muskets can be devastating, but individually, they are inaccurate and slow to reload. Musketeers are also vulnerable to fast-moving cavalry, and require robust formations of pikemen to defend them. The Spanish system has dominated for a century, but recently, things have begun to change. New Dutch-style infantry formations, called battalions, are smaller and less deep, with a larger proportion of firearms. This makes them less durable, but also more flexible, mobile, and capable of firing denser, more deadly volleys. And there is a push to integrate artillery with the rest of the army. Gustavus Adolphus is an early adopter and perfects the new system. His aggressive and innovative tactics, with smaller units, more firearms, and light artillery integrated into every regiment, make his army dazzlingly quick, mobile, and lethal for its size. They also win him a reputation as the father of modern warfare, and praise from men like Karl von Clausewitz and Napoleon Bonaparte as one of the greatest military commanders of all time. In the summer of 1631 he seems unstoppable. In September 1631, the Swedish army of Gustavus Adolphus, bolstered by troops from Saxony, meets Count Tilly near a village called Breitenfeld. With near 40,000 on both sides, it is one of the largest battles of the 30 Years' War, and a clash between two of its most celebrated commanders. Tilly's cavalry charges the Swedish right. They are met with devastating fire, and are repulsed 8 times. At the other end of the line, Catholic cavalry routs the Saxons on Gustavus's left flank. But as Catholic forces advance, a gap opens up between them, which Gustavus exploits with a devastating counterattack. Tilly is caught flat-footed, his ranks dissolve and flee, leaving at least 7,000 dead on the field, with almost as many taken prisoner. The Swede and Saxon dead number just over 2,000. Breitenfeld is a crushing victory for Gustavus, and Tilly's first major defeat, a turning point that opens a pathway for the Swedes into the south. By spring, they are pushing into Bavaria. At Rhein, Tilly tries to stop them, but fails, and the old Catholic general is mortally wounded. Emperor Ferdinand turns to an old ally, Wallenstein. In July 1632, Gustavus has moved north again to Nuremberg. Wallenstein sets up camp nearby. Both sides struggle to find food, and are ravaged by starvation and disease. Wallenstein breaks camp to scour Saxony for supplies. Gustavus follows and offers battle near the town of Lutzen. He needs a quick victory before Wallenstein can be reinforced, but a thick fog spoils his plan. In the chaos, Gustavus leads a cavalry charge, loses his way in the fog, and is killed. On paper, Lutzen is another Swedish victory, but the king's death is a grievous blow. The Protestant cause reels from the loss of the Lion of the North, one of history's great military innovators and leaders. If Gustavus Adolphus had walked away from Lutzen, history may have been very different. And such mishaps and accidents are sometimes argued to be as important to history as its great structural forces, like culture and demography. Europa Universalis 5 is a game in which you can reach for many levers to influence the destiny of your chosen nation-state, but the unexpected can still throw you off course, just as it did for the Kingdom of Sweden. In this sophisticated sandbox for creating alternate history, the test will be to see if you can weather such storms and push on to empire and lasting glory. That winter, Swedish troops are mutinous and desperate. But Wallenstein holds back his forces in the east, near his own estates. In January 1634, Emperor Ferdinand learns Wallenstein has been negotiating his own separate peace. He is declared a traitor, cornered by imperial officers at his headquarters, and he too is killed. It's the end of an era. 3 giants are dead: Tilly, Gustavus, and now Wallenstein. The emperor turns his attention to the Swedish scourge. 33,000 imperial troops move into Bavaria. 26,000 Swedes meet them in pitched battle at Nordlingen. Without their totemic leader, the Swedes stumble to disaster. They lose half their army. A potentially fatal blow. But it draws a new player into the fight. France. 1635, war has raged for 17 years. Hundreds of German villages lie in ruins. Food shortages are chronic. Reports of cannibalism flourish, besieged soldiers eating dead comrades, women devouring their own children. Years of pillaging, banditry, and warfare have forced people everywhere into desperation and despair. The anti-imperial forces are in disarray. Emperor Ferdinand offers a way out. He swears to halt his assault on Protestantism. A general amnesty is proclaimed. Alliances with foreign powers forbidden. Protestant princes flock to accept the terms. Former allies denounce the Swedes as a scourge on Europe. But the war does not end. A powerful new player will see to that. Though Catholic, France is encircled by Habsburg domains, a grave strategic threat. Cardinal Richelieu, France's ruthlessly pragmatic chief minister, has bankrolled anti-Habsburg forces for years. He now commits to open conflict and declares war on Spain. But Richelieu immediately faces a crisis. The Rhine Valley is secured by France's German allies, but Spanish forces push into France from the north and east. They get within 70 miles of Paris before they are repelled. Meanwhile, the Swedish army is in a dismal state, unpaid, badly supplied, and mutinous. But French money and fresh reinforcements allow them to fight on. And then, another bolt out of the blue. In February 1637, Ferdinand II, the man whose intransigence threw Europe into war, dies aged 58. His son and successor, Ferdinand III, is capable, level-headed, and more flexible. But he lacks his father's ruthlessness and is caught off guard by renewed Swedish energy. Johan Bainer, the aggressive Swedish commander-in-chief, conducts a series of audacious campaigns and wins upset victories at Wittstock and Chemnitz. But his supply lines cannot support a sustained advance, and each time, he is forced to withdraw. Then, he too dies of illness in May 1641. The following year, his successors once again meet the Imperials at Breitenfeld, and win another crushing victory. The Swedes entrench themselves in Saxony, near the Habsburg heartlands. 1643 will prove a pivotal year. In May, 21-year-old Louis de Bourbon, Duke of Enghien, smashes a Spanish army at Rocroi. It is one of France's greatest military victories and secures its northern border from the Spanish threat. The French then move into southern Germany, but their advance grinds to a halt at Tuttlingen, thanks to the efforts of the steely Bavarian commander Franz von Mercy. That same autumn, France's uneasy alliance with the Swedes faces crisis, as the Swedish army marches north to invade Denmark. It is an opportunistic land grab by the government in Stockholm, spurred on by a more hopeful development. Peace talks have begun in the Westphalian towns of Osnabrück and Munster. Everyone wants peace, but all seek a strong bargaining position, ensuring talks, and the war will drag on for 5 more years. Southwestern Germany is ripped apart by clashing armies, until Mercy is killed at Allerheim, along with 9,000 other casualties. The road to Bavaria lies open, but the French can't take full advantage. Victory has crippled their army. 1645, the Swedes have returned to Saxony. Pushing south, they almost reach Vienna, but with too few men to take the city, they swing north to loot Moravia, and fall back. By 1646, the French have regathered their strength and march against Bavaria. A Swedish force joins them and maneuvers past Emperor Ferdinand's main army, leaving Bavaria virtually undefended. To save his duchy, Bavaria's Duke Maximilian, one of the few leaders in place since 1618, offers peace, only to rejoin the war a few months later. The French and Swedes have had enough and decide on a joint, decisive blow. In May 1648, the last imperial field army is shattered at Zusmarshausen. The remnants fall back into the far south, leaving Bavaria's countryside exposed to plunder, pillaging, and wanton violence. While the remains of the Bavarian and imperial armies hold up a desperate defense, a separate Swedish force marches south from Saxony and reaches Prague. In a twist of fate, they capture Jaroslav Borzita, one of the men thrown from the castle window 30 years before. But the Swedes can't take the city. Both sides are exhausted, down to their last reserves of stores and energy. Then, in early November, momentous news arrives: peace. After 5 years of discussion in Westphalia, conditions have finally been set. The terms, Dutch independence from Spain, along with that of Switzerland, one of few imperial realms that has managed to stay neutral in the war. Greater religious tolerance in Germany. There is to be no forced conversion of subjects, except in the lands under direct Habsburg rule. And territorial concessions to the major anti-Habsburg powers. France receives Alsace, while Sweden gains western Pomerania and 3 important German ports. After 30 years of war, it is a peace everyone can live with. The 30 Years' War was a disaster unprecedented in Europe's history. A local revolt over religious rights that reignited ancient rivalries. And fed on personal ambitions. Until nearly all Europe found itself at war. An estimated 5 to 8 million died, most from famine and disease. The hardest-hit areas lost nearly 2/3 of their inhabitants. 1/5 of all Germans perished, a much larger share than in either World War. Even after the Peace of Westphalia, Spain and France fought on for 11 more years. The Holy Roman Empire, though weakened, survived for about another 150 years, finally dissolved in 1806 during the Napoleonic Wars. The Treaty of Westphalia is often viewed as a turning point in world history, the first modern secular international peace conference, and a major step toward the rise of Europe's nation-states. Historians continue to debate Westphalia's importance, but one thing is not in doubt: the 30 Years' War cast a long and terrible shadow. For 300 years, it remained a terrifying cautionary tale of how one small act of violent resistance might spiral into a senselessly destructive total war, a warning that was, ultimately, unheeded.